Welcome this third particular stop. We're joking here, at least there's livestock at this stop, not dead stock. So there is, but Richard Moore's my name, Thompsons obviously. I'm pleased to have Jason McFerran here from CAFRE. At this stop we're basically taking everything from 12 weeks onwards and really how do we manage the animal, feed the animal after 12 weeks of age. James and Joe have discussed that period. But how do we manage them after that period then to achieve the targets for 24-month calving? So I'm going to cover primarily the nutrition for that period. Jason then, for me, is probably going to cover nearly the most important element, which is the economics of it. So what about any of this, unless that it makes blinking money? You know, we're all in this job to make money, and for me, Jason very much sets the scene in terms of, and really confirms to us, you know, the importance of 24-month calving. Economically as well. So it is. So anyway, Gordon alluded to the fact that it was all about a workshop, and that's very much the case. And by way of that, we're going to start here. We have a heifer here, 444, Gemma. She was born on the 19th of June last year, and we're going to sort out the stock men from the stock women now. But would anybody like to hazard a guess now at the weight of the animal? And I'm sorry to say there's no prizes. We didn't get speaking with the marketing management to sort that out for you, Joe, but fire me out a few figures. Joe, what do you think? 440, right, hard. What, Joe? 400, okay. Any other thoughts? Higher or low than 400, 440? 380, Raymond? 410, 420. Right, hard. We'll run her down. And see what she does. At the bottom end, just down here, we have the platform. She's 14 months of age. And that's what she is there. She's 395. So the folks that were 380, 400, I'd say you're the best group between yesterday and today, quite honestly. So you are, but we'll talk about it down here, but she's very much on target, and maybe even, if anything, slightly above target, you know. We have borrowed this today. It's a fantastic piece of kit that many of you maybe will have, maybe would like to have. I don't know, maybe 1,500, a couple of grand, but safe, easy, convenient, and quick, you know. We did and have developed weigh bands some years ago alongside CAFRE, alongside AFBE, and they will do the same job. I'm sure maybe many of you have seen these. The issue with these, and just in the day and age that we live, is just as safety. And only by way of, and she might or she might not, but we pulled it around a number of them earlier on today, and it was developed way back 10 odd years ago. But as you can see, lining one with the other, she's in there in around about 401, it reckons, you know. So it does what it said it would do in the 10 way back 10 years ago. It's fairly accurate on the Holstein Friesian breed. But just what I'm at there in the wrong heifer, that's where just you get into a broken arm. And that's all I would say about it, you know. But anyway, that's that particular animal there. We have a second one, and if I could just ask you just now, sort of, we're kind of to and fro a wee bit here, but if I can move just this side of the gate, and we'll bring down the second heifer, till we get a wee look at her. Now the next heifer, she's 12 months of age. Any thoughts here now, this particular heifer? Nobody has X-ray vision that they can see the weigh scales. Any thoughts on the weight of this heifer? 420. 422. You know something. Any thoughts? You think you know something? You think you know something is the one about it. Any advance in 420? She's 2 months younger. 420, hard again. 430, sorry. 430. Okay. Any other thoughts on the heifer? 440. No. She's higher than that? She's lower than that? She's lighter than the other one. There you are now. The truth of it is, that heifer, albeit she's 2 months younger, is 421. Eh? That's right. There's two messages out of those two cattle. The first animal was, I guess, that now, it wasn't really the message with this group because you were the best and probably the most accurate of all. But I'd say in every other group today and certainly yesterday, there's a tendency to probably underestimate by at least 30, 40 kilos. The people who contributed in your own group didn't necessarily, you were fairly close. And the second message then is in this particular heifer here, going on age, she's still some way to go. Going on weight and looking at her, like she's more than ready for the bull. And those two cattle, these two cattle are going to the bull tomorrow. They're going with the black run with the black bull tomorrow, and absolutely more than ready for it and above target for it, you know. So that, in some ways, I suppose, that's the practical element to the stop here. And what I want to do now is take us down to the boards, and we'll maybe talk a wee bit more around this subject of meeting the targets over the complete 24 months. The younger heifer has done exceptionally well. Exceptionally well. I mean, I think the other heifer has done very well. Just why it has done so well, I don't know the background, Raymond, just exactly, but it is done as exceptionally. Yeah, it must have got trans formula. I've no idea. What, Harold? What, of course, I mean, listen, there's so much, to daily life with Gian. What, Derek? That's right. That's right. There's nothing but little bit the Fermanagh man, Derek. Listen, there's so many valid and proven reasons as to why one animal would do better than another, and genetics is one, of course. Simple things. Simple things. Did it maybe get that extra litre or two of colostrum? Whatever the reason, but some one thing or other really made that animal forge on, So it is, and it has done us exceptionally well. But valid question, Raymond, or valid point. We've kind of used those two cattle as a demonstration of, I suppose, without measuring a thing, it's very difficult to manage a thing, And really, what are we trying to manage? Well, we're trying to manage this line here, this line of growth. So a calf that's born here at a day old, 40 odd kilos of weight, running through here, and the target being here that we calve her down. Once she has the calf out of her, once she has cleaned 2 and 3 days after calving, that we have a heifer at 24 months of age at 600 kilos of weight. So it is. That's a fairly straight line curve. So it is, which is 0.8 kilos of live weight gain. To my mind, that's certainly the minimum. We've seen here those two cattle there, both have done over this line, and to my mind, this is the minimum in terms of where we need to be on a target. And yet, practice would show us, the farm data would show us from benchmarking that in so many ways, we're as an industry, we're just struggling to achieve that. We have an average of 28, 29 months in the benchmarking. Goodness knows what as an industry, quite honestly, But we struggle to achieve this reasonably simple line of growth, so it is. To my mind, there's two key areas to it. Number one, being that first 12 weeks. Absolutely, we talked about the reason why that calf is so better than the other one. I would be certainly sure that the reason, whatever it may be, lies in that first 12 weeks. Whatever went on in that first 12 weeks. There's no question of that, or maybe genetics. That's critical. This phase here is essential. So I would put it as critical, essential. If you get these two right here, this phase here will some way, shape or form probably look after itself unless something goes fairly significantly wrong. So it is. And so the focus is very much in this first 15 months, so it is, and about trying to achieve this 0.8 kilos of live weight gain. So that's grand and fair and well. I can talk about what we need to do. How do you then go about it? Some years ago, we tried to develop, because it should be fairly simple, and I suppose when we, thought we'd, try and put something reasonably simple towards trying to achieve this. So we developed a number of blueprints, again, with the objective of doing exactly the same, taking it from 40 odd kilos right through to 24 months and 600 kilos of weight. And the defining factors, or the defining, what we felt the defining factors in terms of which regime would be best for that calf, was the stage of the year that the calf is born. So a calf that's born now, in the month of October, a month of November, is a very different heifer to rear in my mind than the heifer calf that's born March, April, May of next year. So it is. In terms of trying to achieve 24-month calving. Because the calf that comes in now comes into a fairly clean house. Everybody's focused on calving, everybody's focused on rearing calves. The animal that comes in more so in April, May, whatever the case may be, it comes into probably more than likely less clean housing, more of a disease build-up, and we're all flat out. Everybody's at grass, everybody's at fertilizer, slurry, whatever the case may be. The focus is not necessarily on those weaned calves that are up in the upper house and doing whatever, you know. And that's the difficulty with it. So if I take this one first, and I don't want to overly labour those, but these regimes are built upon average situations for across the province. I'm not dealing with this. This is a standard regime, regardless of when the calf is born. The first 12 weeks, and the boys have covered that. Joe, you've been there, Mary Jane. Joe and James have covered that. But post that, if I take the calf born now, this is the calf that should, to some extent, look after itself. If we do things reasonably right, reasonably well, this calf should meet reasonable targets fairly consistently, you know. Silage. Average silage in terms of heifer systems would be a 10.5 ME, 10.3, 10.4 ME forage. We never tend to see the rocket fuel going into heifer systems. Naturally, it's kept for the dairy side of the business, but this is what we would see more so as the average. And on average, that sort of silage requires 2.5, there or thereabouts, kilos of feed to keep it on this line. So it is. It goes out then next April. Next April, we still want to keep the power at it. You could have a year such as this, you could have a year such as last year. You don't know, but the general recommendation that we would make of an average over years is a kilo of feed for that first summer entirely. So it is, alongside grass. Comes in then again then this time next year, in to be served, must keep the power at it. 2.5 kilos of live weight gain, or ration, sorry, alongside average quality silage to keep it on the 0.8 kilos while serving the animal and getting it in calf. And then of course then, out again the following spring, out the grass, into this stage here. If this is all right, we can let it freewheel then to some extent then thereafter, and it will freewheel quite satisfactorily on a reasonable year at all, so it is. That's probably the gimme heifer. That's the easier one to certainly bring into this program and achieve this and achieve these targets. This history would have shown, and data would show, that this is always the animal here that will present the difficulty, and the animal that people will come to me and say, no, do you know what? We'll let that heifer run on. She's the heifer born April of next year. I really don't want her calving even in April 2 years down the road. She's a pain in the backside for me. She doesn't fit in with my program. And that's fair enough, I would understand that. But having said that, there's a fairly significant cost to that. If you let her run to the 30-month-old calving heifer, that is a fair cost. And in some ways, maybe what we should be doing with her, and I suppose what we were bringing through in this system here, can we maybe drive her into a 23-month-old calving heifer, or maybe a 22-month-old calving heifer if we really put the power on. But the only way in my mind of really doing that is consistency of diet. So it is, and consistency of environment. So for that first 12 odd months, that animal doesn't see outside that first summer. It's inside, it's fed an intensive diet, it's a more expensive diet. It'll be straw alongside 3-4 kilos of ration, as the case may be, as it grows. More expensive, but a lot more cost effective than letting it run on 4, 5, 6 months, a longer age or a greater age at first calving. So it is. So those were the blueprints that we developed, very much. You'll get a copy of this as you leave today, very much based on the averages. So an average scenario for average farms across our 9 counties, as it might be that folk are here from today, you know. We're all in the game long enough to know that there's significant variation from the average as well in terms of silage quality. And this, we've talked about the average. This is a first cut silage maiden from Fermanagh at the end of May. 10.5 ME, and as per this blueprint, to achieve the 0.8 kilos of live weight gain, it needs 2.4 kilos of ration to keep it on the line. Every silage analysis that we do, on the reverse of it, there's a recommendation for feed rates for dairy cows according to milk yield, but we're also putting a recommendation in terms of feed rates for heifers on that particular silage to keep them on this line. So it is. So that's with every analysis. That was that one. This is second cut fairly sharp, early July. It's a full megajoule mower, so this is now 11.5 ME, a good quality silage, probably a little bit damper, but now we're down a full kilo in terms of feed rate, full kilo of ration less than this one to keep it on the 0.8 kilos of live weight gain. The one that I don't have here that I probably should have here is the one on the other side of this, the 9.5 ME and the 9.9 ME that there was so much of last year, but yet went till every heifer in this part of the world, you know, because that's what was there for. And in many ways, when those results come through, a lot of that stuff needs certainly somewhere between the two, maybe 3.5 odd kilos of ration to keep her on this line. Now that's a cost, it is what it is. You're trying, of course, in a summer of silage making to avoid that, but it happens. But it's better to do that than miss these targets and let that heifer slip on the 3 and 4 months. So it is. Absolutely, absolutely essential. So it is. This is the most expensive system, of course, the straw system. Straw being 7 ME, so where we have a 10.5 and an 11.5, straw is only 7 ME. And if you're going to keep her again on this line, that's at 12 months of age, 5 odd kilos of ration. That's what she will require to really keep her on this line. So it is expensive, no question, but again, the same thing, more cost effective than letting her slip. So it is. So at that, we'll take questions at the end, folks, but I want to pass over now to Jason because his message is very important in terms of the whole economics of the job.
So good to see you today. As Richard said, my name's Jason McFerran. I'm based up in Greenmount, part of CAFRE, and I look after the benchmarking system there. So what I want to literally just scratch the surface of or touch on today is the cost of heifer rearing. So around 400 to 500 dairy farmers benchmark with us every year, and that's what my figures are based on. So while you're looking at me and not the figures, shout out what you think it costs you to rear a heifer to the point of calving.
Take your time into it.
Take your time into it as well, depending on how valuable you think you are. So shout out a figure. What do you think? £1,000, 1,200, 1,600. Getting anybody any higher than that? Okay, so as I say, there's no right or wrong answer, and everybody's going to be different. And all I can see here or talk to you about is the averages. Okay, but the way we do it, the way we calculate that cost. So very good question. Do we include your own time in it? Of course you do. You're valuable. You don't work for nothing. You have to put that in. So if you think on a simple dairy farm, so on a simple dairy farm, you've got your dairy cows, you've got your dairy replacements, you gather up all your costs, everything that's spent, and some of those costs you say, yes, I know those costs went to the heifers, some of the costs you know went to the cows, but there's other lumpy overhead costs, whether that's machinery or your labour or conacre or something else, and you think, I need a way of splitting that out, some sort of percentage. So the way we do that is on a cow equivalent basis. So we add up all the cow equivalents in the cows and in the heifers, and we split it according to that proportion. That normally works out at around 20 to 25% of your overhead costs go to the heifers. Okay, and so again, everybody's done on the same basis, and that's how we've done it here today. So in terms of those costs that we know go to the heifers, what we call the variable costs, so you'll not be able to see too many of them here, but the biggest one of those is the concentrate, the meal. That's about £190 on average we're saying is being spent for a heifer. That's just less than a tonne. So some people feeding more, some people feeding less, but you're going to, on an individual farm, that might range from 150 up to £250, depending on the price of meal. Okay. Forage costs, which the predominant cost in there is your fertilizer. So that's the next biggest cost, about £130. Then you've got about £60 in milk or milk replacer, about £60 for veterinary costs or AI costs, and a few other bits and bobs brings you up to £468 that we know are going to the heifers. We then add on the percentage of those overhead lumpy costs, and that's actually more coming from that, 650 odd pounds coming in there. Okay, so again, that's all your machinery, your paid labour, your conacre, all of that. Two other major costs, one that we've touched on, the family labour, the unpaid labour, if you like. We're putting in a cost of £350 there for that. I don't know if that pays you or it's worth getting out of bed for that, but that's what we've put in for that. The other cost is the calf itself. The calf has a value either in itself or the opportunity cost of rearing another animal, and we put in a value of £250 across the board, regardless of breed. And when we bring in a few deaths, bit of mortality, that comes up almost to £300. Add all that up together, and we're sitting there at £1,766 on average. So almost £1,800 to raise an animal to the point of calf, whether you're selling it on or rearing it on your own farm. So the big question in my mind, though, is these green and blue bars here show the top 25% performers and the bottom 25%. The top 25%, they have a saving of £200 or £300, so $1,438. Why? What are they doing that's different to the average? How are they bringing that down? They're not making that saving by feeding a wee bit less concentrate or buying cheap straw somewhere. They're not making that saving. So we want to get to the bottom of that. Why are they doing that? Equally, why are the worst performers spending £200 or £300 on the other end, bringing it up over £2,000? Two things that I want to touch on that I think are the answers to that. One, we've been touching on already, age at first calving. This little chart down in the bottom here is with my nice sticky label. The number of young stock that are needed on a 100-cow dairy herd. So down this side we've got age at first calving, and the numbers are getting bigger and bigger the more months it's taking to rear that heifer. The second thing though on the chart is the replacement rate. Okay, so again, the higher the replacement rate, the more animals are needed to replace and to replenish the stock in the dairy herd and keep you sitting at that 100 cows. Richard touched on it. We looked at all the heifers in 2016 across Northern Ireland, 30,000 animals that calved down for the first time. The average of those animals calving was 28.3 months. The average sitting at 28 months. Now the average means it's in the middle, which means yes, a quarter of those heifers are calving at 25.5 months and less, which is great, that's where we want them to be. The flip side of that is though, a quarter of those animals, 1 in 4, are calving down after 30 months. Right up to 40 months. Okay, 1 in 4 animals. So I'm not going to ask you when your heifers calve for the first time, but those are the facts coming from the records. So when we put all that in here and we're sitting at our average, 29% replacement rate is our average, 28 months is our average, we need 71 animals to keep the thing going. Okay, so not expansion, but just keep it going. If, however, we bring it back to where we're wanting to be, so back up to 24 months and put a replacement rate back a wee bit to 23%, the 71 drops to 48. That's a drop of 23 animals. And those 23 animals, if you think about it, are the animals that are between the 24 and 28 months. They're big animals. Big animals, what do? They take up space. They eat plenty. They take up ground that you're maybe taking in conacre. They produce slurry. They take up your time. There's money tied up in them. So all of that is meaning that's costing a lot less money if we can get it down to closer to 24 months and the replacement rate down in there. A recent study that came out from the Royal Veterinary College in England said it costs £50 extra per month after 24 months calving. So every month that you go past the 24 months, that's an extra 50 quid that you're costing the farm. So on average then, 28 months is 4 months extra. 4 months times 50, that's £200 extra that you don't want to be doing.
On top of what it costs per month?
Yes. So, well, it's no. That's just the added cost to rear that heifer, if you like. Okay. So if it normally cost £1,400 at 24 months, if you were able to get it at 24 months, if you want the 25 months, it would be an extra £50 on top of that cost. So it just keeps on adding on. Okay. But it's a cost that doesn't need to be there. That's what I'm saying. The other difference is animals that are calving down at 24 months as opposed to a later, a greater number of months, they're more likely to last longer in the herd. That means more milk, it means more lactations. So these animals calving at 24 months, they're lasting for almost 4 lactations. If you drop back to the 28 months, which is our average, we've lost half a lactation there. So that's half a lactation of profitable milk that you're losing out on. Averaging at 7,000 or 8,000 litres, that's 3,000 or 4,000 litres that you're missing out on, that she's not coming back.
Or have you proven that?
So these are the facts that are coming out. So that is factual. So that's based on I can't remember how many animals, but that's based on Northern Ireland statistics from a couple of years ago. Okay, so and there's countless studies, whether you look at America or over across Europe, the same studies will be saying the benefits are huge in terms of aiming at your 24-month calving, both economically and health of the animals and the lifetime yield of that animal as well. So those are the two key things. Naturally, if you're getting more lactations, your replacement rate is falling back then too, so that percentage is dropping back. Obviously, there's other things that influence your replacement rate, your lameness and your fertility and mastitis and lots of other things in there that I can't touch on today. But if that's working together, you're pulling back that replacement rate naturally anyway. So those are the two things that I think are impacting the costs. Yes, we can work at targeting meal. We can work at targeting the milk replacer, and you don't want to be wasting anything. Of course you don't. You don't want to be spending more money on machinery than you really need, of course. And we can see the top 25% guys here, they always have lower overheads because they generally don't spend as much on machinery perhaps as other farmers. So we can see that, but those are the key things that we're looking at in terms of trying to save money. Age at first calving and herd replacement rate. So it's an expensive business. Sometimes it's something that gets pushed to the side because the cows are the one making the money. They're producing the milk. But if you're tying up that money and it's costing, as I say, on average almost £1,800 per heifer, it's something you need to focus on and try to do as well as you can.
So £1,800 is the same for a heifer born in September, October, or same as for a heifer born in March, where you'd be hitting the grass, which is cheaper than feeding silage.
I suppose that's where the variability comes in. These statistics are a big average in there, and that's why there's a range within that too.
To answer your question, Harold, this regime here that we would recommend for the spring-born calf is certainly more expensive than this regime here. No, than the autumn calf, no question of that. Now, I don't know the figure, but there's no question that it is. But having said that, back to the same thing, it's still a heck of a lot more cost-effective to do that than let her slip 6 months. Oh yes, I mean, yeah, I mean, and I suppose that's the nature of farming, and I suppose on the what they call the risk taking within farming. And this year, I mean, it's safe to say this summer cattle have done especially well at grass. Especially well last summer, for goodness sakes, the complete opposite end of the spectrum, more cost, and even with the more cost, the cattle didn't do as well. You know, but that's the nature of the business that we're in. Yeah, and there's no doubt about that, and that's it now. Certainly the worm issue has been a big issue this last 3 odd weeks. There's no question that, and I wouldn't sidestep that. And in fairness, I suppose we're sat here today in a reasonable nice. August has not been a good month. August has not been a good month. Yeah, August has not been a good month. I'm getting nudged here again, sorry. Folks, I'm sorry, we'll be about, of course, over lunchtime.